Welcome. This is the June 19, 2021 Juneteenth celebration in Woburn Center. We are now live streaming the raising of the Juneteenth flag. Oh, no worries.
Killing with a 2-year-old.
I'm on the other end of the spectrum. Mine are 15, 19, and 21.
So you'll be dealing with it again in a few years.
As grandchildren, hopefully with a better seat.
Then you can just hand it off.
My name's Michael, by the way.
Andrew, we've met at a couple of Martin Luther King Day.
He's my husband.
It's true.
I'm the one.
I got with that one. Also true.
They're taking all these pictures that I'm in the background.
Emily, just get ready. My grandson's coming down too, so you put him on that down.
Okay, I got it. I'll hold it.
I
do too. They got a
Firefighter like you can't hold your own grandson?
Last night. I was like, I gotta have 5.
Counterbalance. Just hold it.
I've seen your grandson. He gets around.
Margaret from no, actually the library, her maid.
I'm assuming you didn't actually let him drive the fire truck.
And then next
I
year,
know
we're
we're
going to celebrate my
understaffed.
birthday. Everyone will have it on.
I tried to say that a little louder for you.
What a great day too.
You definitely don't listen to me.
I have a handicap thing, but I'm already on a handicap. No, it's not.
Yeah.
He said no.
He doesn't want to. How are you, service? I represent Woburn in the legislature in Massachusetts.
And these beautiful girls.
I live in Berkeley.
Hi, I'm Emily. This is Clara. Thanks so much for helping out with our event. I'm really glad.
You're welcome. Hey, Emily, how are you?
This is Clara.
Clara.
My mom? That's my middle, so my mom?
I've seen you on a couple of interviews. And, I sent you some. So nice to have you with us here. Thank you.
It's kind of hot out here. It is hot.
It is hot.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, because I have a water.
We have the saving grace of
Let me know.
No. It's really hot. It's fine. It's fine. No, it's different than that. Which is good because there's more that want to participate.
of shade, and we'll get started in just a minute or two. It's a celebration.
Live, I can't stop.
I said putting a chair on a hill is not the best idea, but...
Yeah, no, I agree.
Are you here now?
Huh?
You're here now with your camera, right?
Yeah.
You're just going to run across the street for a
Yeah,
second.
you can watch yourself.
Please don't give my chair.
I will not. Plus, you got me recorded live, so I have no choice. Welcome, everybody. This is the Juneteenth celebration in Woburn. We'll be starting in a few minutes with the actual speeches.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. And welcome to Juneteenth Woburn 2021 celebration. It's really great to see so many faces out here today. My name is Philip Gordon. I'm the Deputy Director at SCI Social Capital Inc., based here in Woburn. As a local nonprofit, SCI's mission is to strengthen communities by connecting diverse individuals and organizations through civic engagement initiatives, meaning we rarely do things alone. So before I begin, I'd like to thank all the local organizations that contributed to help make this event a reality. It's a long list, so please bear with me. So in alphabetical order, I'd like to thank the City of Woburn, Cummings Properties, Embrace Club, Gourmet Creole, the James L. McCown Boys and Girls Club of Woburn, the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer, NAACP Mystic Valley Branch, St. John's Baptist Church, the Woburn Democrats Committee, Woburn Public Library, the Woburn Public Schools, Woburn United Methodist Church, and last but not least, Woburn Welcomes. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the community members who were instrumental in bringing us together today. So if the members of the Juneteenth Planning Committee could either stand or wave your hands, and if everyone else could join me in giving them a short round of applause. Personally, I would like to thank Emily Lipset, Jennifer Jones, and Sophie Chizawa for helping to lead the planning, coordination, and communication efforts for Juneteenth. I'd also like to thank Zane Proop from the NAACP Mystic Valley Branch, who supported our efforts from the very beginning. And finally, I would like to thank Hermine Gordon, Tracy Breeden, Samantha Hughes, and the rest of the Woburn Public Library staff for all they have done to plan, prepare, and host us here today. So we have gathered here for Juneteenth to celebrate the emancipation of the last enslaved African Americans here in the United States on June 19, 1865 in Galveston, Texas. The first official Juneteenth celebrations took place a year later in 1866, and over 150 years later, it has now become a federal holiday. With so many racial and social justice issues still to be addressed, this recent news has been called symbolic by many individuals. And yes, I do agree that it is symbolic. I would have preferred real action by Congress on police brutality or protecting voter rights and access. However, symbols are still important. They continually remind us what to remember, how to remember, and why the remembrance matters. Juneteenth is a celebration of African American achievements, contributions, and resiliency in the face of oppression. The Juneteenth flag represents not just new beginnings for Black Americans through the Red Horizon, but also new beginnings for all Americans through the bursting outline of the Nova, a new star. For me, Juneteenth is a reminder that emancipation was really just the first step. It is a reminder of all the subsequent struggles of Black Americans to fully realize and exercise their freedoms as citizens. It is a reminder that we still have a long way to go towards racial equity and justice. But it is also a personal reminder that while the work is hard, it's been made a lot easier by the Black men and women who came before me, gave everything so that we can all gather here today. All of our lives are better because of the blood, sacrifice, and determination of our African American forefathers and foremothers throughout U.S. history. So while we are here today to celebrate together, let us also honor the legacy of Juneteenth by taking action to work towards true equity and justice in our communities, our organizations, our schools, our families, and most importantly, in ourselves. Thank you all for being here today. Now, I would like to invite Mayor Scott Galvin to the podium to give the Juneteenth proclamation and officially start the celebration.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks to Phil for emceeing. He did a great job starting off. And I do want to echo Phil's sentiments of thanking all those who came and put this event on today. Not an easy event to pull together, but you know, Phil mentioned all those names. I'm not going to mention them again, but all of you guys did a fantastic job, and thank you from the city for all your efforts. So let's give them one more round of applause. As Phil said, it's a very important day in the city, the Commonwealth, and across the country. With Juneteenth being recognized by both Governor Baker and President Biden as a national holiday and state holiday. So great steps forward and well done. So what I'd like to do is proclamation recognizing Juneteenth Independence Day. Whereas Juneteenth is one of America's oldest holidays and is observed each year on June 19th to mark the official end of slavery in the United States, the day which gets its name from combining June and 19th has long been celebrated by Black Americans as a symbol of their long-awaited emancipation. And whereas on June 19th, 2020, Governor Charles D. Baker signed Juneteenth Day into law as an official state holiday in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in order to recognize the continuing need to ensure racial freedom and equality. And President Joseph Biden signed legislation on June 17th, 2021, establishing this day as a new federal holiday. And whereas due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this is the first Juneteenth Day that Woburn will be celebrating as an official holiday. One of the most popular ways that Woburn will celebrate is with programs that center on education and the meaning of what Juneteenth Day stands for, and the raising of the Juneteenth flag in honor of this new state holiday. And whereas on this day, in hundreds of communities across the country, people of all races, nationalities, and religions will join hands to acknowledge the painful history and lasting systematic impact of slavery and racial injustice in the United States. Juneteenth Day is an opportunity to recommit ourselves to the goal of creating a more equal and just society, an effort that continues today. Now, therefore, I, Scott Galvin, Mayor of the City of Woburn, do hereby proclaim June 19th as Juneteenth Independence Day in the City of Woburn. And I urge all of our citizens of Woburn to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in this observance. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Galvin. Before we continue our speaking program, I just want to take a moment to thank a few of the local elected officials who have come to join us today and other dignitaries. So first I'd like to recognize Congresswoman Catherine Clark and ask her to come up to receive a small gift from the Juneteenth Planning Committee.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, and I am so pleased to be here in Woburn for the first celebration and commemoration of Juneteenth. And I take Phil's words to heart. My friend, the icon of the civil rights, John Lewis, said, "Freedom is not a state, it's an act. And we must continue to act to bring true equality and justice to all." And I thank you for your act of being here today to show that Woburn is a community that believes in learning from our history and moving forward with justice. Thank you for having me.
This way, Catherine, after. Smile.
All right, I'd also like to recognize State Representative Rich Haggerty for joining us today, State Senator Cindy Friedman. You could wave your hands as well. Woburn City Council members Jeff Dillon and Bob Ferrullo, and anybody else I might have missed there, and our Woburn School Committee members Ellen Crowley Mike Mulrennan, Andrew Limpsett, and Colleen Cormier. Really appreciate everybody, all of you, for supporting our efforts now, today, and in the past, and moving forward. And then lastly, I'd like to recognize, I know he's not out here right now because it's very hot, but we have a guest of honor here today. His name's Clifton Reed. He is a retired U.S. Air Force captain and a member of the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated. And we're very honored that he has taken the time not only to be here with us today, but he's going to be running a program later this afternoon, which I'll share about a little bit later. All right, now I'd like to invite Zane Crute, president of the Mystic Valley NCAA chapter, up for a few comments.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Happy Juneteenth to all.
Yep.
I thank everyone for taking the time to be here. Our dignitaries for being here. Woburn welcomes, Woburn Dems, my NAACP branch members who have a table in the back who are doing memberships. Everyone of Woburn has come out today. You could have been doing anything else in the world today. You could have been down the cave. You could have been staying away from the heat. You could have been in Miami or somewhere, but you're here celebrating Woburn's first ever Juneteenth. So we truly appreciate everyone taking the time out to be here today. So what does Juneteenth mean today? A lot of people always ask this question. They were asking this question since last week. They were asking this question since last year. Personally, some friends have been hitting me up saying, come on, be honest. Do you really celebrate Juneteenth? Is this really a thing? Like, have I just never got a barbecue invite? To some, yes. To some, to be honest, no. Juneteenth is symbolic, and it's great that more people are learning about it today, and we're doing more. Even though necessarily every person of color you know might not have been having a Juneteenth barbecue for the last, couple decades. So Juneteenth today is a time to, celebrate, a time to barbecue, a time for the arts, a time to, further cultivate, learning, a time to spend time with your neighbors. And due to President Biden, Governor Baker, Juneteenth is the fourth summer holiday, which I'm sure everyone is thrilled about. Now we got Memorial Day, Labor Day, the 4th of July, and Juneteenth. I'm sure everyone was fighting on a limb and was going to go to the polls to vote no. I don't want a fourth summer holiday, right? So that being said, this is really important. Everyone's glad to have a holiday. Me as a banker by day, who doesn't get that many days off, like I've been out one day this whole year, I'm thrilled to have another Wall Street holiday specifically. So, all that being said, that is not the reason for this holiday. Like most holidays, it's not just about having a day off of work. Like as we always say for Martin Luther King Day, it's not a day off, it's a day on. So we want to say the same thing as Juneteenth. We want to think of the reason we have Juneteenth of what happened, hundreds of years ago. Why are we taking a moment to learn more? Why are we celebrating Juneteenth? We want to know that specific reason, not just, the barbecue and have time, fun with family and friends, which I'm sure we're going to all do. I'm going to be doing a little bit out of myself later today, hopefully. So, to move into what Juneteenth means to me, in the past, Juneteenth to me symbolizes, progress not coming overnight. We had the Emancipation Proclamation that freed slaves, but it didn't free all slaves. It took some time for the effects to reach, Galveston, Texas. Same thing with police reforms in America. We've had a lot of things happen across my life, whether it was, Sean Bell when I was in high school, whether it was Trayvon Martin when I was in college, whether it was George Floyd. Are we done now? We finally got a conviction? Police officers finally being held accountable? Are we done? No. It's amazing that we finally have some accountability being seen, but that just shows how long progress takes to, reach everything. It doesn't happen overnight. Same thing with Juneteenth. 100 years ago, for about a month or so ago, we had the burning of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was symbolic as well for whenever we see progress, we have a couple steps back. 2008, Obama, which was great. Many people thought racism in America was over, but that being said, we stepped in the other direction and elected y'all President Donald Trump. He ain't mine, because I'm certainly not playing him, but that just shows, how progress take 2 steps backwards for every time we take a step forward. So we want to keep that in mind while focusing on Juneteenth. Having a day off, having another holiday is phenomenal. We're all thrilled about that. But that being said, we cannot forget that there's more work to do. There's more work to do, making voting more accessible, not, harder to do. There's more work to do for true police accountability. So the bills that passed, in the Senate and the House of Massachusetts, I was a supporter of. I was thrilled to see some progress, to see Massachusetts leading the nation in progress. That being said, the bills didn't include a lot of stuff we wanted to see, such as abolishing or extremely limiting qualified immunity. That is the #1 thing we need to have police reform in America, which is why the police unions fought so hard to keep that out of the bill. So until we see more done to that, we can't see true police accountability. Furthermore, Massachusetts has some of the best institutions in the country for education. I'm about to get granted my MBA in about less than a year when I complete 4 more classes. That being said, the school that I'm going to get my degree from has 4% black students. 4% black students in a city, Boston, that has 25% black people. In a country that has 13% black. You're telling me you can't do any better than 4%? Like, that's the best you can do? So, I want to challenge everyone to do more. We want to get more high-paying jobs to people of color, not just the low-paying jobs. I know a lot of people are fight for 15. People of color can do more to make $15 an hour. We want to ensure they're not excluded from good-paying jobs in this country. We want to ensure more progress is made on schools, not less. There's a lot of stuff going on across schools, across Mystic Valley, across Woburn. We want to ensure teachers are taking diversity, equity, and inclusion serious. We want students of color to feel comfortable in our school systems, whether it's the rich private schools, whether it's the towns that aren't as diverse as, more diverse areas across the Bay State. So we have a lot more to do. So going forward, reflecting on what we can do for tomorrow, I want to encourage people to continue doing what you're doing. You just being here is doing a lot. You're trying to learn more, you're trying to, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's important. You caring enough to learn about stuff is doing a whole lot. We want you to continue to fight for things that are good for Black Americans and other people of color, whether it's, the fight for reparations, the fight for police reforms, the more diversity in our police forces, the more diversity in education, the more opportunity in job growth. Like, we got legal marijuana that's finally legalized in, Massachusetts. We want to ensure that people of color benefit from these economic, benefits of this. Our country's been doing such a great job locking people up for years, so we want to ensure that people of color aren't left out of the benefits of this economically now. So I want to challenge everyone to continue to learning, continue to do more, and support organizations, whether it's, the NAACP. Like I said, we got a table with our members back there. Become a member, fight with us. The more members we have, the more work we can do. Organizations such as the NRA can do a lot because of all the members they have. So we want to ensure when we speak, people listen. We want to ensure that, our favorite Congresswoman, Catherine Clark, who's been a great friend of the branch, did a reparations event for us just this past week. If we didn't have the members we had, other Congress and political figures might not take us serious. So we want to continue to grow our members. We want to continue to do more. We want to continue to fight for the social, political, economic, and educational equity for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. Really appreciate that passion, that honesty, and the call to actions. Now, I'd like to invite Ron Walker to the stage, deacon at St. John's Baptist Church based here in Woburn.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Now, I'm a deacon, but I'm following the pastor. I'm following the preacher. So I'm not going to try to preach at you. I'm just going to try to reinforce some things on this important day. But let me first tell you something. I'm a free Black man, proud father, proud grandfather. I am a faith-centered man, and I'm an educator. Former principal, former teacher, and I wear a hat that says it all, educate to liberate. Now, on this day, This is Liberation Day.
Amen.
So I'm going to try to cut right through some points for you. And I'm going to ask you to walk with me through some things as well. Okay? Because the teacher in me doesn't like a passive audience.
All
Okay?
right.
So, first of all, I belong to St. John's Baptist Church, which this year is 135 years old.
All right.
Now, that's significant because that was only a few years, 21 years after Juneteenth.
Yep.
And I gotta believe that some of the members of St. John's Baptist Church could possibly have had some relatives who were part of the freedom in Juneteenth.
All right.
How do we know that could be true? The fact that we had free black people in Woburn and Massachusetts may have had relatives in Texas. Mm-hmm. So as you know, this is also Jubilee Day. It's proud to be free. It's momentous. Just as my brother from the NAACP said, it's not only a Woburn first, it's a state first, it's a national first. Mm-hmm. So I want you to join me in giving a round of applause for a special person also. That lady is 94 years old, and she was called the grandmother of Juneteenth. Her name is Opal Lee, and every year she would put on her walking shoes, every year, to take a 2.5-mile walk. And you know the significance of 2.5 miles or 2.5 years.
Yeah.
She would get in the hot sun. She would walk from Texas to here, there, to everywhere. So let's give a round of applause for Ms. Opal Lee. And as you may know, she was at the White House. She was one of those sparks. Every movement needs a spark. The question I have for you, will you be a spark? Are you a spark now? Will your children be a spark? Each person can do something. Now today we honored Juneteenth by raising the flag. Let's remember this. The people who were enslaved, and if you've noticed, I do my remarks, I will not say slaves, enslaved. The people who were enslaved were consigned to a brutal and harsh treatment in the institution known as slavery. But although these ancestors were enslaved, let's be clear about one thing. They were not born to be slaves. They were born to be humans. And what that means, we all know, to be human requires that you have all the rights and privileges of being human. You know, voting, access to housing, fair treatment. So we want to thank the City of Woburn for all that it's doing to make sure that these rights are institutionalized in this city. Now, raise your hands, and this is one of those to be honest questions. Raise your hands if you learned about Juneteenth while you were in school. Okay, I see a couple. I see a young person, but that's good because somebody told them that now. But most of the hands are not up. Okay, I see your hand. Okay. But again, most of our hands are not up, which makes a statement about what we must do in schools. You know, because when we teach truth, we empower people. When we teach truth, we liberate people. So I know that the Woburn Public Schools and all the schools that are in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will be teaching Juneteenth much more rigorously. We also know that before June 19, 1865, freedom wasn't free for everybody. When Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation in 1863, declaring all people to be free, all slaves, there were 10 states that didn't follow that mandate. And that's because the landowners wanted to make sure that their property was kept. So let's do this. Let's walk together. Let's all pretend we were enslaved. All of us. Let's walk together back in 1865. Because here's what we know what happened. Most people might think, well, Lincoln signed the Emancipation in 1863, and then Juneteenth 1865. that most of the slaves or the enslaved people in Texas did not know what was going on? Oh no, they knew freedom was around. They could also read. All of them weren't illiterate. They also had the telegraph. The word traveled that freedom was taking place all around the country. They were just waiting for their turn. So just think, if you were there, walking your tattered shoes, tattered clothes, in the hot sun, every night you're wondering, when will I be free? When will I be free? When can I anticipate freedom? That's the kind of thing I think is important for us to be sure we put ourselves in shoes. Because we can celebrate holidays, we can have cookouts, but if we don't remember why we're doing it, then we're doomed to make the same mistakes we always do. Now, as Opal Lee said, we celebrate July 4th. And July 4th was the day when the land was free from the British. What Opal Lee is saying, why don't we celebrate from June 19th through July 4th? Because June 19th is the day when people were free. So this whole notion of freedom, what does it look like? What does it look like for you? What does it look like for me to be free? That's the question that we need to keep on going back to, asking ourselves over and over again. Are we free? Because in 1800s, a woman by the name of Emma Lazarus, and she said this before Dr. Martin Luther King, and she said this before Opal Lee, and she said, until all of us are free, none of us are free. Until all of us are free, none of us are free. And so as I get to my conclusion, and also I'm going to leave with a few spoken word bars, let me say that we must take the time to learn about Juneteenth. Let's be reminded that freedom is not always free. Let's continue to be freedom champions and freedom warriors. Let's continue to freedom dream and continue to honor the sanctity of freedom for every man, woman, and child on this planet. Let's lift every voice for freedom. And let's continue to teach what emancipation truly means. Now let me close with this few remarks. The flag has been raised. The day of praise and jubilee is here. The people cheered, laughed, and shed joyful tears. Today is June 19th, representing freedom, liberation, and emancipation. A day long awaited by the ancestors with resolute anticipation. Now is the time to celebrate and remember the purpose of this day, for freedom's flame must burn bright and never go away. And justice, liberty, equity, and peace must continue to light the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Wise words, words to live by as we move forward. All right, now I'd like to welcome Amy Cardoso to the stage. She is co-chair of Woburn Welcomes and is the faculty advisor for the Embrace Group based at Woburn Memorial High School.
I have some big shoes to fill after the last two speakers. Zane and Ron, that was absolutely amazing. Your words of encouragement and hope are so symbolic and so important on a momentous day like today. But my name is Amy Cardoso. I'm a teacher at Woburn Memorial High School, and I'm one of the advisors of the Embrace Club. One of my other advisors, Rosalie Matthews, is here as well. And standing behind me, I have some of my amazing club members. I'm flattered to have been asked to participate today in this monumental event for our city, and encouraged and grateful for the work that so many community organizations have done over the past few weeks to plan and execute today's festivities. I'd also like to thank the speakers of this program for sharing with us your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. If you don't know who we are, WMHS Embrace is a diverse and inclusive group of students of different races, immigration statuses, religions, cultures, ethnicities, sexual orientations, gender identities, socioeconomic statuses, political affiliations, and abilities. We welcome everyone. It is a safe space for challenging discussions and topics that affect the lives of students of color and their peer allies. Our goal is to spread awareness as well as to attend and host events on issues surrounding race, culture, heritage, social justice, equity, and more. We're a very active club at the high school, and we're growing by the year. Advising these kids behind me and the few dozen more in the club has been such an honor the past few years because they teach me through their experiences, insight, and hope for change as much, if not more, than I could ever teach them. I'm humbled to introduce two of our rock stars, recent class of 2021 graduate Sophia Matthews and rising junior Kafui Kema. I've known both of these bright, hardworking, passionate young ladies for 2 years, and I'm awed by their growth and academic excellence. As a white woman on a day of historical significance to the Black community, I will not speak for them, but instead stand here today in support of them and the countless other students just like them at WMHS. Elected officials, school personnel, community leaders, and Woburnites alike, I ask you to please listen to what they have to say on this important day. Don't just hear them, but listen to them. Digest their words. Ponder how we can work together to move forward. And seek to learn to be amenable to the concept of being uncomfortable. Challenge yourself to do anti-racist work and to be an ally to communities of color. These young minds, as well as all of their peers in the Embrace Club, are the future of Woburn, our state, our nation, and our world. May we be grateful for their contributions while acknowledging and accepting that we have a long way to go as a society. Thank you all so much.
All right, first up is Sophia Matthews.
I'm going to start off with a quote from Rosa Parks. I was a person with dignity and self-respect, and I should not set my sights lower than anybody else just because I was Black. I wanted to begin with this quote because even though Juneteenth is a day to celebrate Emancipation Day, people of color and other minorities still face many injustices. As a high school graduate, I'm getting the opportunity to go off to college along with some of my classmates. But many couldn't even think of applying because they don't have support at home, or they need financial assistance, or they have to get a job right away to help out their families. Or they simply are discriminated against and may not even be accepted. We live in a rich country that alters its own identity and history. We are responsible for giving importance to our country's past, yet we never truly act as a country made of immigrants and many mixed people. We are responsible for our inappropriate ambition of inverted values, where even today we struggle with social inequality, the lack of humanity towards darker skin colors, different cultures, and the less fortunate. How long will this be accepted is still an issue. We are responsible for a world that still has a lot of injustice and illusion that we call freedom, because everything in life has a price. We are responsible for achieving freedom in diversity and equality. We are responsible for making all not feel, but actually be included, because the sun rises for everyone. As we celebrate the freedom of enslaved people of color, 156 years later, keep in mind the actions we still need to take to improve not only our country, but the world. As we all know, many people of color have suffered racism and police brutality, especially within the last year, proving that our fight is not over. In the words of Coretta Scott King, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it every generation. Thank you.
Next Next, I'd like to welcome to the podium Kapui Kema.
Hello members of the Woburn community. My name is Kapui Kema and I just finished my sophomore year at Woburn High. In school, I spent time learning French and Italian as well as Spanish in my free time. I enjoy playing volleyball, reading and writing, and I've been a part of the Embrace Club since freshman year. Some more fun facts about me is that I am 100% Ghanaian. My parents are from Ghana and I speak Ewe, a Ghanaian language. Aside from that introduction, Juneteenth is a remarkable and special day to me, and I'm sure to many other people as well. A little history lesson is that Ghana was the center of the British slave trade for almost 150 years. One of the most important European slave ports in West Africa was Cape Coast Castle in Cape Coast, Ghana. Cape Coast Castle was one of the many stops on my first trip to Ghana as a 10-year-old. Being inside the place and walking through the many hallways of the castle, there is an air of melancholy. There are also thoughts racing through my head that maybe ancestors of mine could have been in this very building centuries ago. A very specific part of my trip to the castle involved entering a dark room with high ceilings and no windows. That very room was where enslaved people were held, where they slept back to back, toes next to someone's head, packed together with no space. I vaguely remember the tour guide mentioning how many people would die of illness because of the lack of space. I could only think about how I couldn't breathe that well since there was barely any ventilation. It was over in about 3 minutes as we headed for the door of no return. Unfortunately for the enslaved people in that room centuries prior, it was not just 3 minutes. And for them, heading down to the door of no return was as despondent as the name. What they may not have realized at the time was that leaving those ports in Africa and landing in the Caribbean or in this country, they would arrive on shores of land that then provided them decades to centuries of inhumanity, as being seen as less than what they were created to be. Today is the day that we revere those who didn't make it out of bondage or survive the ride across the mighty Atlantic. But today we also celebrate those who lived their liberation on June 19, 1865. We celebrate the generations of resilient and melanated men, women, and children who have shaped this country into what it is today. I am proud to be who I am in the skin that I have because my heritage is celebrated on a day like today. Regardless, Juneteenth is not just one day that we should honor and uplift Black voices and Black stories. Every day is a day that we can lift up the voices and stories of BIPOC. I urge you all as a community to hear your neighbor or friend's worries, understand why we fight the good fight for recognition and respect, and encourage others regardless of race, religion, gender, and a multitude of other factors to keep pushing for the equity we need. Thank you all so much and happy Juneteenth.
I just want to thank Sophia and Kapui for their powerful words. I've had the pleasure this year to work with the Embrace Group on multiple projects. Really the first time, and it's just been amazing to see them in action, see them coming out here and speaking. They always show up, and this is our future, so we got to make sure that we're supporting and uplifting them, right? All right, so as you can see to our left, we've got a handmade Juneteenth flag. This was actually made by the Torch Club at the James L. McCown Boys and Girls Club of Woburn. Torch Club is a middle school service learning club. Again, I've had the opportunity to work with them multiple times over the last few years. These are some of your representatives. All right. These are some of their advisors and staff at the club representing, and I'm just going to read the statement written by the Torch Club members about their homemade flag. All right. The idea for the Juneteenth flag was thought of by Boston activists Ben Haight and designed by Berlin, Hines, Azim, and Elliott Design. The flag was then created by Boston-based illustrator Lisa Jean Graff. The red, white, and blue colors on the flag are the same as the U.S. flag to represent that African Americans have always been a part of America. The inner star represents freedom from slavery in all 50 states. The bursting pointed outline around the star is inspired by a nova and represents a new beginning. The curved red shape across the bottom represents a new horizon of opportunities for Black Americans. Quote, and while African Americans today are still fighting for equality and justice, Hayes said these colors symbolize the continuous commitment of people in the United States to do better and to live up to the American ideal of liberty and justice for all. Harmeet Kaur. Torch Club chose to make this flag using our handprints to show that we are all a part of one community and it takes all of us to make a difference. Thank you to Torch Club and the James L. McCown Boys and Girls Club of Woburn for doing this and supporting our Juneteenth celebration today. And thank you to their staff for showing up and showing support in person. All right, so we're coming to the end of our speaking program, but before we close, I just want to take a moment for all of us to sing the what is often called the African American National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. So if you picked up a program, it's on the last page of your program booklet. And John, if you could cue that music. All right, you're gonna have to forgive. I would invite everyone to stand up and sing with me. I'm gonna get us started, but don't have the best voice, so please drown me out.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound where the glory seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught. Sing a song full of the word that the present has brought us. In the rising sun, every day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Amen.
All right, so thank you all for singing with me. And sorry that I have zero singing abilities. In terms of our program today, we've got children's story time starting at 2 p.m. over under the dogwood, and then we have a second children's story time at 3 p.m. At 2:30, at 2:15 in the program room, which is at the basement level in the library. We've got Captain Reed, who is going to be doing a Tuskegee Airman tribute and then a Q&A. I really encourage everybody to, as many people as possible, to check that out if you're sticking around. He's a very impressive man, and he's in his 90s, so learn some of that history. We've got some info and activity tables behind you, so feel free to check them out for some of our local community organizations. The library is open for Juneteenth book displays around the library, and in the children's room, there's a take and make craft that the staff put together, so if you have any children, go check that out. And then last but not least, we've got Gourmet Trio food truck showing up in about 10 or 15 minutes. I know a bunch of you are hungry out there, I know I am, so make sure you queue up for that.
Clifton E. Reed is a product of the segregated Memphis public school system. Booker T. Washington High School, class of 1945. He's also a product of the United States Air Force single-engine jet fighter pilot school. Bryan Air Force Base, Texas, class of 1952. Cliff is a retired Air Force captain, retired Massachusetts Department of Education Bureau Director, and retired Harvard Institute for Learning and Retirement participant, but not retired from promoting the goals and objectives of the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated. During his high school years, Cliff was inspired by the activities of America's Great Generation. It was the activities of Americans at Tuskegee Institute that inspired Cliff to get into the aviation business. Not all of the Great Generation were at Tuskegee, Cliff says. When I was in high school, I could not distinguish a hawk from an eagle. Cliff is a life member of Lincoln University, Missouri Alumni Association, and holder of degrees from the University of Maryland and the Boston State College. Today, he's pleased to add another voice to this celebration. Welcome.
Thank you, Miss Gordon. I live in Burlington, and I spend a lot of time in this library in Woburn getting information for the job that I had as a bureau director in the Department of Education. And when I was asked to speak on this particular occasion, I thought about times when Judge Garrity was handling a case won by the NAACP against the City of Boston and trying to get equal education for students in the City of Boston through the court. The judge talked about desegregation, and my concept was that there should be integration, and that is a difference between the two. And during that period of time, back in the 1970s, there was a group of individuals in the city sharing equal concerns about what was going to happen in the city of Boston relative to its education. We took a trip out to Colorado to the Air Force Academy, and on the grounds, on the honor court at the Air Force Academy, you will find a statue dedicated to the Tuskegee Airmen. And if you'll take out the handout, thank you. This sheet here I want to use this sheet to talk you through about at least 18 minutes of what was behind this picture. In that group, a lot of people were curious about Tuskegee Airmen. They'd never heard of the name. So I had to explain to them, number one, that the person that built that statue was a Tuskegee Airman. Class of 1943, Clarence Shivers. And that he was an instructor for people in flying training down in Bryan, Texas in 1952 when I was down at Bryan, and had a great sense of humor, etc., etc. And we talked about the background of the people who came into that organization back in the 40s and what preparations that they had, so forth. And we talked about the curriculum at the Air Force Academy. One of the most important things at the Academy and West Point and Annapolis, these are schools that are used to prepare warriors to defend the country. And that statue is in an area called the Honor Court. That is, they should be men of honor when they leave 4 years of training at these institutions. So I'm going to do the talk this afternoon using this sheet here to walk you through the talk. And if you are, I just gave you page 1, and if I can get you over on page 2, I want to give you something else that we talked to them about. And I have with me a very good friend who is my companion in some of the intricate situations that I encounter from time to time, and we are going to try to give you our best impression of what is on page 2 if you will follow through with this. This is Anita Beckett from Ashland, Massachusetts, and more or less my right arm these days when I go out and get myself in a lot of trouble, and I need somebody to keep me out of trouble and keep me on my best behavior.
Welcome, everybody. America sings. I hear America singing by Walt Whitman. I hear America singing the very carols I hear. Those of mechanics, each one singing his, as it should be, light and strong. The carpenter singing his, as he measures his plank or beam. The mason singing his, as he makes ready for work or leaves off work. The boatman singing what belongs to him in his boat. The deckhand singing on the steamboat deck. The shoemaker singing as he sits on his bench. The hatter singing as he stands. The woodcutter's song, the plowboy's on his way in the morning, or at noon, intermission, or at sundown. The delicious singing of the mother, or of the young wife at work, or of the girl sewing or washing, each singing what belongs to him or her or to none else. The day what belongs to the day, at night the party of young fellows, robust, friendly, singing with open mouths their strong melodious songs.
Okay. I too sing America by Langston Hughes. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they will see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. And on this Juneteenth day, the dedication of this day as a federal holiday, that statue should remind America of its shame and also its proud of the people who serve. Let us go to page 3, is what I talked about. And I'm going to take about 18 minutes of your time to review a movie that was produced some years ago and used by the United States Air Force for purposes of getting men into training programs, getting them to believe in education, getting them to believe in the right to vote in order to protect this country. But before we get into the film, I want to introduce you to a man who belonged to an organization who thought of all of these things before we got to the point of Juneteenth. My brother Terry Baker is here. He's a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity that was founded in 1906 at Cornell University with these purposes in mind. Terry, take a bow, please. And now,
common fact that surrounded all of their backgrounds was that all of them had wanted to fly.
There has never been in the course of time more inspiring words written than those that read, that all men are created equal. Sadly, for many, these same words proved a hollow promise left to echo in time, resounding as a mockery of an equality that would demand years of struggle overshadowed by bitter disappointment. Equality was to remain an elusive dream. The dim light of hope never blazed brighter for Black Americans than during an era in American history when they began challenging the discriminatory practices of the armed forces. Key to the demands of major black organizations, such as the NAACP, the National Urban League, and others, was for the designation of centers where Negroes could be trained for work in all branches of the aviation corps. It was not enough to train pilots alone, but navigators, bombardiers, gunners, radio men, and even mechanics. Under this collective pressure, Congress made concessions by passing Public Law 18. Under its directive, an air school to prepare blacks for military service was authorized. 91 of the 100 young Negro college students enrolled in the civilian pilot training program qualified for civil licenses during 1939 and 1940. In spite of all these facts, the Army Air Corps refused to alter its stand and allow blacks to fly. In 1941, with guidance from the NAACP, a Howard University student named Yancey Williams filed suit against the War Department to compel his admission to an air training center. Almost immediately, the War Department responded by announcing that it would establish an air unit near Tuskegee Institute, Alabama, the 99th Pursuit Squadron. Activated March 21st, 1941, the Fighting 99th began training ground support troops at Chanute Field, Illinois. Eager young black Americans received specialized training in maintenance engineering, armament, and communications. Just a few months later, an inaugural address was given at the Tuskegee Institute, initiating the training of black aviators for the United States Army Air Corps. This hard-fought privilege brought with it a great responsibility. The nation was watching, and the fate of future black military aviation rested in the hands of these intrepid young flyers. In a bold and inspiring departure from the expected, the contract for construction of Tuskegee Army Airfield was awarded to the firm of McKissick & McKissick, headed by a black architect and engineer. In July, construction began on the facility for basic and advanced flying training. The first class for pilots consisted of 12 cadets and 1 military officer, Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. It commenced primary flying training July 19, 1941 at Moulton Field. Soon, young Tuskegee graduates would show the world they could not only fly, but fight. Shortly after graduating in the first class of 1942, Second Lieutenant Charles DeBow was stopped on the street by a white civilian and asked, "You one of those new colored flyers over at Tuskegee?" He proudly answered that he was. "Tell me one thing, what do you boys want to fly for anyhow?" he was asked. Shocked but not surprised, DeBow said he couldn't really think of an adequate answer at the time, but afterward realized the simple elegance of his answer. He was flying for his country. He felt he had a job to do for his country and his race. And just as Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carter had proven themselves as educator and scientist, he might prove to someone that Negroes could become good pilots and officers. Armed only with their bravery and determination, fueled by dreams of dignity for others like themselves, Lieutenant DeBow and 4 of his fellow pioneers, Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., Second Lieutenant Lemuel R. Custis, Second Lieutenant George S. Roberts, and Second Lieutenant Mac Ross, became the first graduates paving the way for the other 961 black military aviators who were trained at Tuskegee Army Airfield during World War II. Under the command of Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., 450 of the graduates served as fighter pilots, attaining dignity and glory in the aerial war over North Africa, Sicily, and Europe. P-51 type aircraft. The 99th Squadron became the 332nd Fighter Group, which also included the 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons. Together, they flew 15,553 sorties and completed 1,578 missions with the 12th Tactical U.S. Army Air Force and the 15th Strategic U.S. Army Air Force. And with each and every mission, yet another victory was achieved, not just for the nation, but for our people as well.
The interesting common fact that surrounded all of their backgrounds was that all of them had wanted to fly. Well, I started out with these young people back in a black Air Force in Europe in World War II. Performance is the absolute key in combat. To protect the bombers, to prevent them from getting shot down by enemy fighters, the 99th Pursuit Squadron was an expert in dropping bombs and hitting targets and hitting locomotives. It was also an expert in aerial combat. The 99th Squadron did one thing at Anzio that no other squadron did. It shot down 16 enemy airplanes.
Yesterday, I fulfilled one of my ambitions as a combat pilot. I got one airplane.
This was my country. I wanted a piece of it. I had to fight for it. But I'll be damned if I was going to let some other country come in and take it over.
Though no real plans had been made for their usage, by mid-1943, Negro candidates were being screened to determine their relative aptitude as pilots for multi-engine aircraft, as well as bombardiers and navigators. Class 43J was the first at Tuskegee, with about half of its members training in the multi-engine Beechcraft AT-10, hoping that the bomb group program would actually develop. The first air cadets to train outside Tuskegee were the navigators who graduated at Hondo Field, Texas, February 26, 1944. The 477th Bombardment Group was officially activated January 15, 1944 at Selfridge Field. Although the 477th never entered combat due to the war's end, their struggle for equality and performance as military professionals, along with the magnificent wartime record of the 99th and 332nd, led to a reversal of the U.S. War Department's racial policies. In 1946, Tuskegee Army Airfield closed. Shortly after its closing, the former base commander, Colonel Noel Parrish, in discussing the success of the flying school, said the following: "How good were our pilots? How good is any pilot? Our men were good enough to graduate from any flying school in the country. We made sure of that. And working together, we proved it. We emphasized that a pilot or a man of whatever color, size, or shape is just as good as he proves himself to be. Men and pilots have to be considered as individuals. We have had some of the worst pilots in the world right here, and we have had some of the best. In the first place, they flew and fought as men. They may have had pretty good alibis for being failures if they wanted to use these alibis. Or they may have been proud of their group as the only one like it in the world, as they had a right to be. But when the test came, they had to fly and fight just as men. Americans against a common enemy. Today, there are over 425,000 Black Americans serving in the armed forces as an integral part of the defense of this great nation. Their position in the military, the communities, and indeed the world has been attained and preserved through achievement and honor, the direct result of commitment to their ideals and dedication to their dreams.
In the early days of Tuskegee, in addition to the already difficult job of flying, we trained under the additional pressures of segregation, but we had no time for self-pity or despair. We were too busy preparing ourselves for a career of service to our nation. The state of our fully integrated Air Force today is a pretty good indication that we did a good job. But that doesn't mean that the future will be a rose garden, or that there will not be other obstacles to overcome. Freedom must be repurchased by every new generation. When the Tuskegee Flying Program was offered to America's black youngsters, we were ready. We had prepared ourselves for this opportunity, and when it presented itself, we grabbed it with both hands. Prepare yourself so that when your Tuskegee appears, you will be ready. Freedom must be repurchased by every new generation. Prepare yourself so that when your Tuskegee appears, you will be ready.
Around the room, we have 4 posters that further explain some of the things that we talked to this group about back when we were out in Colorado. And if we can take about 5 minutes?
Okay.
Take about 5 minutes. If you want to review the posters, you'll see some of the individuals that you saw in the film. You will see men who fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. One individual, and if you paid attention to some of the political activities that have transpired in the past year, I believe General McGee, whose name is on a chapter of for the Tuskegee Airmen out at Hanscom Field, and there is also a chapter for Tuskegee Airmen in Boston, the New England chapter of Tuskegee Airmen. Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated was a an organization, nonprofit, formed by the members of the 332nd Fighter Group, having reunions over the year after 1945. In 1971, at a convention in Detroit, decided to form a nonprofit organization to award scholarships and promote education, to motivate and to inspire young people to become people of honor in defense of this country. So let's take about 5 minutes to take a look at the exhibit, and we'll make sure that if you make a request to the librarian, Miss Gordon, she'll perhaps arrange for the exhibit to remain here in the library. Okay? Amen. Take a look.
We actually have
Exactly. That doesn't matter. Well, clearly,
That's nice.
Kevin wasn't here? Did you play golf last week when Kevin wasn't here?
No. I haven't played. Okay, as they say on the golf course, you're on the clock, and we have to be back in our seats and be out of here in a very few minutes. I want to close this session out with the benediction. It's taken from a poem written by a poet who was a friend of the Wright brothers back in Dayton, Ohio. The poet Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote a number of poems over his lifetime. This one is called The Warrior's Prayer. And if I can get this together, I will do my best as giving you what he felt about flying. It's long since, in sure distress, I heard one pray, Lord, who prevaileth with restless might, ever from war and strife, keep me away. My battles fight. I know not if I play the Pharisee, and if my brother after all be right, but mine shall be the warrior's plea to thee, strength for the fight. I do not ask that thou shalt front the fray and drive the warring foeman from my sight. I only ask, O Lord, by night, by day, strength for the fight. When foes open me press, let not me quail, nor think to turn me into coward flight. I only ask to make my arm prevail, strength for the fight. Still let mine eyes look ever on the foe, still mine corner, my armored case be strong and bright, and grant me as I deal each righteous blow, strength for the fight. And when at eventide the fray is done, my sword to deathbed chamber do thy light, and give me be the field, lost or won, rest from the fight. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you adieu.
That we had someone from the Tuskegee Airmen in our midst, and literally in our backyard. So it's been a learning experience. We're here to learn, and we just want to thank you. And I think the committee has a T-shirt, Sophie, that they want to give to you. So Sophie's going to bring it up.